Handheld focus stacking can greatly improve your macro photography, but successfully creating focus stacks takes attention to the technique and lots of practice. In this video, I will cover everything you need to know about focus stacking, including the proper camera settings, stabilization tips, field tips, and post-processing tips that will help improve your handheld focus stacking skills. Focus stacking is a technique where multiple images are captured at different focus distances and then blended together to create a single photograph with an extended depth of field. This approach is especially valuable for macro photographers because the depth of field is very shallow when shooting at high magnifications. By combining several images focused at slightly different points, you can produce a final image with an impressive level of sharpness from front to back, revealing intricate details that would otherwise be lost. While there are several ways to perform focus stacking, I personally prefer handheld stacking because it offers greater flexibility in the field, especially when photographing live subjects or working in challenging conditions where a tripod might be impractical. You don't need an expensive camera or one with a focus bracketing system to get quality stacks. When I started focus stacking consistently about 6 years ago, I was using a Nikon D3400, which is an older model camera with no bracketing system. For those beginning with focus stacking, I recommend starting by practicing with stationary inanimate objects found around the home. Inanimate subjects provide an ideal introduction to mastering technique, as movement can make stacking more difficult. It's important to always begin a stack at the front of your subject and work your way back, as this ensures that you capture all of the essential details from the foremost part of your subject to the farthest point. Starting at the front allows you to maintain a logical progression through the different focus planes and reducing the risk of missing any critical areas that might otherwise be left out or blurry in the final composite image. Achieving high quality results in focus stacking relies largely on proper technique. Therefore, beginners may benefit from using a tripod initially, since handheld shooting often proves challenging for those new to the process. The most important settings for focus stacking will be your shutter speed, the camera mode to shoot in, and your speed like flash settings. Shutter speed is crucial because it determines whether you capture sharp, blur-free images, especially when working handheld. For handheld focus stacking, a shutter speed between 1/200 and 1/500 of a second is recommended if you aren't using a flash, as this range helps to freeze any slight movement, both from your hands and from your subject, thus maximizing sharpness in each frame. The camera mode you shoot in also plays a significant role. Shooting in manual mode is highly effective for focus stacking. Manual focusing gives you the precision needed to make deliberate, incremental adjustments between each frame, which is vital for capturing all of the necessary focus planes in your subject. If you are using a speedlight flash, setting the flash power to a lower level, such as between 1/64th and 1/16th, is ideal. Lower flash power ensures your flash can recycle fast enough to keep up with the rapid shooting required for stacking, preventing missed shots and reducing the risk of overheating your equipment. Additionally, using a flash can help freeze the motion and enhance detail, but be mindful to balance the light so it appears natural and doesn't cause harsh highlights or shadows. Ultimately, the combination of a fast shutter speed, efficient camera mode, and appropriate flash settings will provide the best results for handheld focus stacking, allowing you to capture crisp, detailed images with extended depth of field. The best time of the day to go out and attempt focus stacks is in the morning hours when it's cooler outside, because this is the time period when most bugs are still resting, which makes attempting to focus stack much easier because the bugs are less likely to move. While good results are possible at any time of the day, beginners or those seeking practice should prioritize morning sessions. Knowing when to use focus stacking is crucial. Before trying this method, Take time to observe and understand your subject well. If your subject moves around a lot, it's best to skip focus stacking since any motion during the process will show up in the final image and may reduce its overall quality. On the other hand, if your subject is calm, stationary, or appears to be resting, that is the ideal moment to begin a focus stack. For macro photography, especially with living subjects like insects, patience is key. Sometimes waiting a few minutes for the subject to settle can make the difference between a successful stack and a series of unusable images. Also, pay attention to external factors such as wind, temperature, and light conditions. These can influence both your subject's behavior and the stability of your shots. Another important consideration is the environment surrounding your subject. If the area is crowded with leaves, branches, or other distractions, try to gently clear the space or reposition yourself for a cleaner composition. Just be careful to avoid disturbing your subject since sudden movements or changes can cause it to flee or become active. The last thing to consider is knowing the species you are trying to photograph. Understanding the specific insect is important as different species may respond differently to being approached for photographs. Getting familiar with the insects and bugs in your area can help anticipate their behaviors during photography sessions. Documenting and identifying insects can be useful for future reference. If you are looking for an app that can help you identify bugs, then I recommend using iNaturalist. It's a free, widely used platform that allows you to take photos of insects and other organisms and receive identification help from a community of naturalists and scientists. The app also keeps a record of your observations, which can be useful for tracking which species you've encountered and for learning more about local biodiversity. Using iNaturalist or any other method of identifying subjects can enhance your macro photography sessions by making it easier to document and later research the subjects you photograph. Stabilizing your camera is the main challenge in handheld stacking, but with the right techniques, you can achieve quality results. This section will offer practical stabilization tips for various field scenarios. The continuous shooting method or burst stacking is one of the simplest techniques for stacking. This method will allow you to capture a sequence of images quicker than any other method, which is beneficial because it minimizes the amount of time your subject needs to remain still, reducing the risk of movement that can ruin your stack. Using a flash is generally not preferred for this approach due to most flashes lacking the recycling speed required to keep up with continuous shooting. When photographing in continuous mode without a flash, the most important setting is going to be your shutter speed. Like I mentioned earlier, a shutter speed between 1/200 and 1/500 of a second is what I recommend to avoid any motion blur and ensure each part of the subject remains sharp and in focus. In this example, I was shooting in continuous mode, and I find that when subjects are on the ground, it is much easier for handheld focus stacking because of the added stability provided by the ground. For the best stability possible for these scenarios, you want one hand on the bottom of the lens and the other holding the camera grip. Start focusing on the front of your subject, and once you start taking photos, slowly move your camera forward while you are still taking photos. Scenarios like this example, when you are standing up and the subjects are on plants or twigs, hold the plant in one hand and place your camera on the hand holding the plant. Having the camera on the hand holding the plant makes moving forward after each shot so much easier. For even extra stability, tuck your elbows into your side and take shorter breaths while you are taking the photos, so you won't move as much during the stacking process. If you are manually stacking, with each shot you take, you will have to slowly move forward after each shot. This gradual movement ensures that each image captures a slightly different plane of focus, eventually covering the full depth of your subject from front to back. To maximize sharpness and minimize the risk of missing critical focus areas, try to keep your movement as consistent and controlled as possible. This technique creates a stable connection between your body, the camera, and the plant, minimizing vibrations that could cause misalignment in your stack. By keeping your movement smooth and controlled, you increase the chances of each frame remaining consistently sharp. For scenarios like this example, when you have to crouch down, my recommendation is to plant your right knee into the ground and rest your left elbow on your left knee for added support. Grab the plant with your free hand and rest your camera on the hand that is holding the plant or whatever it is that your subject is on. This method allows you to maintain a consistent movement and keep the camera steady even when working close to the ground or in awkward positions. Practicing this kneeling technique will make it easier to achieve sharp, well-aligned stacks in challenging field scenarios. This is by far the hardest technique for focus stacking because you don't have any physical support from your body or the environment to stabilize your camera. Mastering freehand focus stacking takes time, patience, and lots of practice. It's important to accept that you may not get perfect results every time, especially when starting out. To improve your success rate, try to minimize your movements as much as possible. Brace your elbows against your sides, maintain a gentle but secure grip on your camera, and take slow, controlled breaths to steady yourself before each shot. Pay close attention to your technique and review your stacks after each session to identify areas where you can improve stability or focus precision. I only recommend attempting this technique when it's not windy, since even a slight breeze can introduce additional movement that makes it extremely challenging to keep each frame aligned. In windy conditions, both your subject and your camera can shift unpredictably, resulting in misaligned shots and a lower success rate for your stacks. If you must shoot in less than ideal weather, try to find natural wind breaks or position yourself so your body shields your subject as much as possible. Additionally, be patient and wait for moments when the wind calms, taking your shots during these brief windows of stillness. The first bonus tip I have is to take more frames than needed. When you're out in the field, it's often difficult to judge exactly how many focus planes you will need to cover your subject completely. By taking extra frames, you ensure that you have overlapping areas of sharpness throughout your stack. This gives you more flexibility during post-processing, allowing you to select only the sharpest and most accurately aligned images for blending, and reduces the risk of gaps in focus or blurry sections in your final composite. The second bonus tip I have is that not every photo you take has to be a focus stack. It can sometimes become a habit to want to stack everything, but sometimes a single shot can turn out much better than a stacked image. Knowing when to use a single shot instead of a stack is an important skill that comes with experience. Sometimes the lighting, the subject position, or environmental conditions simply lend themselves better to a crisp, well-composed single frame. A single image can capture a fleeting expression, a pose, or a moment that might be lost if you spend too long stacking, especially with active or unpredictable subjects. Additionally, single shots require less time in post-processing and are less prone to issues like ghosting or blending artifacts that can occasionally occur with stacked images. Ultimately, the key is to assess each situation individually and decide which technique will best capture the vision you have for your photograph. If the subject is still, the lighting is stable, and you want to maximize detail across the frame, then focus stacking is a great choice. However, if your subject is lively, the light is changing quickly, or you aim to capture a specific mood or composition, don't hesitate to take a single shot. Remember, quality is more important than quantity, and sometimes the simplest approach yields the most striking results. As you gain more experience with macro photography and focus stacking, you'll develop a better sense of when to stack and when to rely on a single frame. Trust your instincts, experiment with both approaches, and enjoy the process of discovering what works best for your style and subjects. Once you've taken all of your photos, now it's time to stack them. Software such as Helicon Focus, Zareen Stacker, or even Adobe Photoshop can be used to combine your images into a single sharp composite. The stacking process is not always the smoothest process. Even with careful technique, in the field, you may encounter issues such as slight misalignments, focus banding, or ghosting, especially if your subject or camera moves slightly during shooting. Most stacking softwares include alignment tools to help correct minor shifts between frames, but occasionally you will still see artifacts or areas where the blend doesn't look natural. If you want to learn how to fix artifacts, then click on this video right here. I go more in depth on how to fix these issues in Photoshop. If you want the best software possible for stacking, I will go with either Zareen or Helicon Focus for their advanced alignment and blending algorithms, as well as user-friendly interfaces tailored for macro photographers. I've never used either one of them yet, but I know that they are much better options than Photoshop. Mastering handheld focus stacking for macro photography is a process that requires patience, experimentation, and continual learning. By refining your shooting technique, understanding the nuances of your equipment and environment, and developing a workflow that suits your style and subjects, you can consistently achieve stunningly sharp images. As you build your skills and confidence, don't be afraid to try new approaches or adapt your methods to better fit the unique challenges each situation presents. But I hope this video was helpful for you all, and if it was, then consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content like this. And if you have any questions regarding macro photography, leave them down in the comments below, and I'll be glad to try and help you out. I'll catch y'all in the next one.